And good afternoon. This is our regular Friday Lunch and Learn. So I'm so glad you joined me today. Today, we're going to be talking about some things that are in the news. We're going to be talking about how you can best advocate for your own health. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and there's a lot of new things happening. So I wanted just to kind of talk to you about that. We've had quite a few people call this week wanting to know what they can do to better advocate on their own behalf on their health. And so when we're asking about an advocate who has your best interest at heart, sometimes, we go to the hospital, we're not thinking clearly, and we need to have a patient advocate who is employed by the hospital, who tries to give the family what they need so that they are able to do what they need to do. Sometimes you and your spouse can advocate for each other. You can advocate for your children. There's all kinds of things there. And so what we want to do today is talk to you and give you some information, because we've had a lot of people call the office wanting to know how they can be their best advocate. We had one lady call and she wanted to do a medical exemption for religious reasons and just for philosophical reasons. And she was getting quite a lot of pushback from her company. And I thought this was quite funny because she is a home-based employee. So she doesn't even go into the office. And yet they're trying to mandate some things for her that she didn't want to do. And so I asked her what she put on her form. And she said she put on her form, she just didn't believe that she needed to do that. It wasn't in her best interest. But she didn't cite any documented evidence. So I want to talk to you about that today to give you some information so you can be your own best advocate, okay? So one of the things I asked her, did she state on her form that according to the Nuremberg Code, she could not be coerced into doing an experimental medical treatment that she did not want to have? And she had never heard about the Nuremberg Code. So I want to just kind of go over that with you, because our younger people, they don't know their history, and this is going to help. So this was in 1947. Wasn't even born then, so it's not like I remember it, because I don't remember it, but I learned this in my schooling, okay? The right to avoid the imposition of human experimentation is fundamentally rooted in the Nuremberg Code of 1947. It was ratified in 1964 Declaration of Helsinki and further codified in the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations. This means it is a United States law. This is a law. All right, it's not a mandate. It's not a good idea. This is a law. In addition to the U.S. regarding itself as bound by these provisions, these principles were adopted by the FDA in its regulations requiring the informed consent of human subjects for medical research. It is unlawful to conduct medical research, even in the case of an emergency, unless steps are taken to secure informed consent of all participants. So I want to just read a few of the provisions of the Nuremberg Code. There are 10 of them, and you can Google this and you can find this for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it, but these are the principles that establish the medical practices across the world. Almost every nation adopted this, and the United States did as well. So number one, I'm going to say article number one. It may be called something else on your paper. And I highlighted this. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent. So it should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or any ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. So duress. How many people are under duress because of what we're being asked to do? Quite a few people are under duress. Fear is driving a lot of this. And so that is number 1 in the code. Number 4, it says the experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical, mental suffering and injury. So that's number 4. Number 6, the degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment. So breaking this down, this means that the medical intervention should not be as deadly, should be of a better benefit to the recipient than what the recipient is facing without that medical intervention. I have to watch my words here because we have censors all over the place. So we know that the actual viral component that's out there is, I think it's 99.4% recoverable. Okay, unless you're in a very small microcosm of the human population. You're older, you have a lot of comorbidities. All right. Other than that, it's 99. I think it's 0.4%. Recoverable. So this is really, really important. The degree of risk taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experimentation. And then number 10, during the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment at any stage if he has the probability to believe in the exercise of good faith, superior skill, and careful judgment required of him that continuation of the experiment is likely to result in injury, disability, or death of the experimental subject. And so we are dealing with people who have undergone medical experimentation and they are paralyzed. They've got Guillain-Barré syndrome. They have dyskinesia in their muscles. They can't control their body. They're twitching. It's uncontrollable twitching. And so we don't want to do that. So here are some precedents in law. So you need to know this. So if you're doing your exemptions and that kind of thing, you need to cite these things because that's going to help you. In Doe number 1 versus Rumfeld 297. All right, this was in 2003. A federal court held that the United States military could not mandate emergency use vaccines for soldiers. So this is really important if you are military, if you have a loved one in the military, that the military cannot mandate experimental use or emergency use. The United States cannot demand members of the armed forces also serve as guinea pigs for experimental drugs. We've talked about DARPA a lot on our videos, so you want to go back and check that. DARPA has a long history. Now, DARPA is part of the Pentagon. I can't remember exactly what DARPA stands for. Somebody might want to put that in the comments. And I don't have time to look at it right now because, you know, I don't want to get away from this. DARPA has a long history of engaging in controversial research that has always been done in secret and has more than a number of times ended catastrophically, testing dangerous drugs on soldiers and unwilling participants. All right. It says, the fact is that no current medical device has undergone the usual time frame, phase 1 through phase 4 of independent testing protocols, and as a result have broken the Nuremberg Code of 1947. So you can write that down as one of your reasons that you need an exemption. The Nuremberg Code protects our right to informed consent. The study finds that the variant that's out there right now affects vaccinated individuals more than unvaccinated. Vaccinated people spread the virus as fast as the unvaccinated. All right. This alone should have prevented the FDA from granting either an emergency use authorization or full approval to either of the mRNA COVID vaccines. All right. The Nuremberg Code says refusing the vaccine, self-spreading vaccines are real. And this was in the Taylor and Francis Journal, volume number 15. All right. So you can look at that and you can do your own research on that. The media is very, very biased on what's going on here. And the research shows, and here we have the exact statistic, that the infection fatality rate is 0.14%, according to the head of the Health of Emergencies program at the WHO. So that's a very, very small amount of fatalities due to what's going on here. So the survival rate, if you're under 19 years old, the survival rate is 99.97%. I mean, that's almost 100%. If you're 20 to 49 years of age, it's 99.98%. If you're 50 to 69, that would be my age group, you are 99.95% recoverable survival rate. And if you're over 70, it's 94.6%. So if you're over 70, that's a big deal. If you're under 70, it's not so much. If you're over 70 with comorbidities, that means you've got COPD, cancer, diabetes, or you're obese, then that you're gonna have a negative outcome with that because you're not a healthy individual. I think it's 60% of Americans are not healthy. They're overweight. And so weight is a big, big deal. This is a letter to the head of that agency, which is a European agency. And this is a quote. You have used lies, deceit, and mimetic programmed propaganda about our national health system being overwhelmed and used as a focal, emotional, brainwashed leverage to allow docile citizens to acquiesce to fake science before being scared of the vaccinated. All right. So that's important. All right. The shot, all right, has not ever been proven in independent studies identified as safe and effective. So the criteria for study, right, is, I think it's a 5-year criteria. I know they rushed this really, really quickly because of all the scare tactics. The second thing you need to know is that the term vaccine has been modified, the definition. In 2019, Merriam-Webster defined a vaccine as a preparation of killed microorganisms, living attenuated organisms, or fully virulent organisms that is administered to produce or artificially increase immunity to a particular disease. But in early 2021, they changed the definition to a preparation that is administered as by injection to stimulate the body's immune response against a specific infectious disease. All right, so they changed that. So you need to know that this is a gene therapy and not a vaccination. All right, and we're going to get down to that because it is dealing with mRNA. Now, I have heard people say that they've talked to their doctors about this, and their doctors say, no, nothing's gonna happen to your DNA because we're using this technology. But I want to segue over to this report, and this report is by a doctor. Her name is Elizabeth Lee Villett. She is the former director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. She was also president of the Truth, or she might even still be president of the Truth for Health Foundation. Okay, I think she's still the president of that. And one of the things that she says is about doctors and who is controlling the doctor. So this is really important for you, that you can make your best decision for you and your family. Now, we know that I'm going to say the majority of doctors want to handle this current situation in one way. And then we've got a whole nother set of doctors, we call them frontline doctors, who are handling it a different way. And why is that? Why aren't all doctors? Because they're all certified. They all go through med school. They all pass the exams. They all go through residency. They all do the same thing. So why is one group saying one thing and one group saying the other thing? And this is what this doctor, who is very knowledgeable, and she is in a position to speak about this. She says, for the most part, the doctors who are speaking out about the medical risks are independent physicians. They answer to the patient. They do not answer to a large hospital health system where the administrators are dictating what the doctors do and the doctors say. Between 85 and 90% of doctors are not independent. This number increased after the Obamacare legislation in 2010. By design, it pushed physicians into employed roles where they are controlled by administrations running the health systems. They have two masters. They have their employers they have to answer to while still trying to act in the patient's best interest. All right, so this is important. Who does your doctor work for? Hopefully your doctor works for you. Now, we have people all the time that come into the clinic and they say, well, I want my doctor to do this and they won't do it, or my doctor wants me to do this and I don't want to do it, and then they get mad. And it's like, your doctor works for you. You are the one that pays the bill. You pay the insurance bill. Your doctor is supposed to work for you. So if your doctor is not working for you, you need to change doctors, and you need to find an independent doctor who will work in your best interest. Now, that's not to say that we know more than the doctors. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that as a patient, you should be able to have a conversation with your doctor, and you should be able to understand the whys and the wherefores of what they want you to do. Now, just so you know, because of insurance, and if you have insurance, this will mitigate what the doctor's able to do for you, because there is a thing called standard of care. Your doctor, because he's covered by insurance, he's got malpractice insurance, he has to give you standard of care, even if he may not even believe in that, because that's what insurance forces him to do. So you need to understand that. So when you go to the doctor and the doctor only wants to do X, Y, and Z, and you maybe want to do P, Q, and R, then you need to say, but look, you want to have my best interest. Tell me why what I want is not the right thing. And sometimes you may be misinformed. Sometimes you might not be misinformed. And so these are the kind of questions that we need to ask, because the doctors are supposed to be advocating on your behalf. So back to the shots. The shots meet regular vaccines. Okay, regular vaccines. They meet the FDA regulation. Let me back up here. There was a press conference on August the 4th, and it was to disclose to the public the risks of the experimental genetic therapy shots. These shots meet the FDA regulation of gene therapy, which requires 15 years of safety monitoring. This has not been done, and it has not even been mentioned to the public. They are not traditional vaccines in the historical definition. Even the traditional vaccines have 2 to 5 years of clinical trials, all right, and safety evaluations before they are rolled out to the public. So this is something that you need to know if you're trying to get an exemption, that in the United States, in our law, it's a law, not a mandate, there for a gene therapy shot, it has to have been studied for 15 years before it is proven to be safe. And so that's important, right? That's something that we need to know. It says these experimental shots have 2 months of clinical trial data, and then they suddenly gave them emergency use authorization and began mandating and coercing people around the world. This has never been seen before. It is a deviation from the normal practice, normal FDA regulations, and, as I have said, the Nuremberg Code. Now, one of the things too on your exemption form, you want to make sure that your employer knows that you know the difference between the BioNTech shot, which has the emergency use authorization. The brand is Pfizer. It still is only emergency use. Okay. The one that they approved is called Comirnaty. You can ask your doctor to give you the Comirnaty vaccine, but I'm going to tell you, it doesn't exist. It does not exist. Yes, it has provisional approval, but it does not exist. So that could be another reason why you want an exemption, is because there is not an FDA approved shot that is available. I know what the media is saying. I know what the talking heads are saying, but I'm telling you from a legal perspective, those are two different shots. One is available, emergency use only. The other one is provisionally approved, but it doesn't exist yet. So those are some things that you need to know, because that'll pad up your exemption request. And so the final thing I want to talk to you about is medical freedom. A huge element of medical freedom that physicians historically have always defended is the oath of the physician to carry out for the benefit of the patient to the best of their ability or judgment. This is what the core principles of physician-patient relationships have always stood for until the 1960s, when President Lyndon Johnson pushed through the Medicare-Medicaid Act. To get it passed, he promised that the government would not dictate treatment, would not set prices, and would not intervene in the physician-patient relationship. All of this has been totally thrown out. The government sets the prices, and it also decides what it's going to cover. In other words, it dictates treatment for Medicare and Medicaid beneficiary. It also dictates what the doctors can and cannot do. In the 1980s, the managed care model was really taking off. Administrators and bean counters with no medical training decided what would be covered, what doctors could do for treatment, and how many treatments that the patient could have. They intruded into all aspects of medicine, dictating what could and could not be done. And so this is really important. If you do have insurance and you want a specific procedure, or you want a specific medication, you're going to maybe get some pushback from your insurance people. Now, I am told, I've been told by multiple people, that the frontline people that you're going to talk to have a high school education. They're not medical people. They are people that they're told what to say, they're told what to approve, they're told what not to approve. And I am told that if you ask to speak to a supervisor and you push it up the ladder, that a lot of times that the insurance company will do what you want them to do, or what the doctor wants them to do, because they can make an informed decision based on the fact that they're more educated and they're not just following a list of rules. All right. So that's really, really important. So this managed care, and I remember back in the 80s when there was PPO and HMO and all that kind of stuff. So maybe you're old enough to remember that, maybe not. It says this escalated with the 2010 healthcare law, which put even more draconian controls in place. It gave an exemption, and listen to this, it gave an exemption to all the anti-kickback statutes that Congress had enacted when they had pharmacy benefits managers come into the picture who were paid to deny doctor-prescribed medications to patients. These pharmacy manager middlemen get a kickback to choose something else at a lower cost to benefit the insurance carrier, a pharmaceutical company, or whoever they are connected with. These are all the behind the scenes intrusions into your medical freedoms. Now, I have not been able to find it, but I have seen You know how when you have a financial planner, they want you to have a money market account and they tell you what industries are within that money market account. Well, they do. You can Google it, you can look it up. I have seen that the government's money market account, their pension account, is heavily funded with investments in pharmaceutical companies. So your government is incentivized to follow this plan because of their pensions and because of their benefits. So this is something that you need to know. We don't want you just blindly believing everything that you read. Don't even believe everything that I tell you, right? I do my best. I do my research. I do far more than what's on the first page of Dr. Google, right? But you need to do your own research to find out how you can best advocate for your health and your family's health. So, given you a lot to talk about. I've given you a lot to think about. Google the Nuremberg Code. You can cite this on your exemption form, and I hope that you do. It is the weekend. Get out, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy some downtime, be good to yourself. Do self-care, whatever that means for you. Enjoy your family. Enjoy some rest and relaxation. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.